Welcome to Stockholm AI podcast. There is a very large number of people today building vertical AI solutions or specific software as a service or SaaS products across different industries. However, vertical SaaS products are at an interesting junction. On the one hand, there are large AI and tech companies that have the potential to use their mote and their distribution and serve the entire industries, for example, healthcare, education, music industry, etc. On the other hand, there is a vibe coding movement that's happening where basically anyone can potentially create their own bespoke SaaS tool. And then in between of all this, you actually have the real users that have the real business needs. And these business needs are rarely fully addressed by any single approach. And then you can pose a question, how does one build and secure their own successful SaaS AI product today? So this is what we're going to explore. My name is Armin Catovic. I am the head of AI at Funnel and also a vice chairman at Stockholm AI. And today I'm actually joined by Valentin Buchner. Valentin is a chief architect at Chapter 2 and also a graduate in Master of Science in Artificial Intelligence from Vrije University in Amsterdam. He's previously worked as an ML engineer at the global private equity firm called EQT in a Motherbrain team, where, among other things, he also worked with the Nobel Prize Outreach, or NPO, which I thought is extremely cool. He's also published several papers at top AI conferences, including Europe's and KDD, which I think is even cooler and absolutely brilliant. And I actually saw recently a photo of you with Geoffrey Hinton, Valentin. What was like meeting one of the godfathers of AI?
Good question. Wow, it was amazing. It was really inspiring. The background to the story is that, as you said, we have worked on this project together with Nobel Prize Outreach. It was a project on knowledge graph that we collaborated on. And as a result, we were invited to this Nobel Prize reception. And it was a pretty serious event. It was like a strict dress code. And we arrived and we were served with champagne and they had little snacks. One of the snacks was lemon tart with some cream on top. And we knew that some of the laureates would be there. So we had our eyes open. And after a while, we also spotted Geoffrey Hinton. And the funny thing about this, the first thing that I saw was how Geoffrey was... he had put some of the cream of that lemon tart on the tip of his nose and been fooling around with it and making fun about it. And I just thought that was so inspiring to see how actually one of the most important researchers of our time doesn't take himself too seriously and can have fun at an event like that and fool around. And that, I think, is something I generally admire about researchers and definitely about Geoffrey in particular.
Yeah, I mean, Geoffrey, for people that don't know, I'm sure a lot of people know, but he actually won a Nobel Prize in physics as well, which is incredible. So, and he's considered one of the godfathers that started the whole AI movement that we have today with the large language models, etc. So that's super impressive, really nice. I never met him personally, but back in 2022, actually just before the pandemic hit, I was at a triple AI conference in New York, and it was kind of scary because the pandemic sort of started in China, but it hasn't really spread out, worldwide. And Geoffrey Hinton and Jan LeCun and Bengio, they were actually awarded the Turing Award prize. Yeah. So they were at that conference accepting it. I remember seeing them free from a distance, and they were like pinching each other, so it's really cool. I completely agree. So the theme for today is actually building deep vertical AI products, solutions. But before we get into it, and this is also relevant to that topic, you've been working in AI and data science space for about 5 years, roughly. You were at EQT, you were at a few different companies before that. You're at Chapter 2 now. How is working with AI today different than it was, for example, when you first started, 5 years ago? And what is it that you really love about it now?
What I really love about it now is pretty easy to answer, I would say. It's definitely like the speed at which you can develop things now, new products, new features, new everything. What is different now? I would say everything. It's a completely different thing. Back in the days, it would be pure machine learning. There wouldn't be any APIs that you can call. There would be some pre-trained models already, but that were you couldn't use them out of the box. You would still have to do something with them. You would usually still fine-tune them and integrate them in an existing or in another architecture. Back then, it was a much more tedious and longer process. You would have to first really pin down the problem that you want to solve to the smallest slice, and then you would have to you would have to gather all the data, you would have to clean all the data, which would usually take the most time. Then you would have to set up the model architecture, the training process, train the model, and then you would have to reiterate over the whole process. And it could take a month, it could take half a year, right? It depending on the complexity of the problem. It was like, a much longer and more intensive process. And nowadays, I would claim that 90% of the problems you encounter, you can really just solve by implementing some agent, calling some language model via an API, providing it with the right prompt, context, and the right tools, and even include some evaluation pipeline to see how well you're doing. And you can do all of that in a day. So that has changed a lot. And you can get so much more things done, which I really love, of course. And then at the same time, the other thing that speeds up the development process is, of course, you don't even need to do it yourself anymore, right? You can even just prompt your vibe coding agent to, basically build it for you, which makes it even faster.
Yeah, I feel like I've gotten... a lot of people say it's it speeds things up. It absolutely does, 100%. But a lot of the kind of narrative behind AI is also that you just get things done in general faster, and everything is going to be easier. You're going to have more time. I think the biggest narrative is you're going to have more time to do other things. What I find is that actually I am probably 3 times busier now than I was when back in the day, like you said, when you actually had to clean the data, because that took such a long time, and it was a kind of a sequential process, And now, because you can do things so fast, you end up doing like 3 things at the same time, which actually kind of eats up your time super fast, and then you actually end up doing even more work, So it's very cool. You can do things fast, but I feel personally, I don't know if you find that as well, but I feel like I'm actually constantly busy all the time.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that 100%. It's also just the faster you can do, the higher your ambitions go, right?
Exactly.
If you knew that it would take a while to develop this, you would set the time aside, you would want to do it well, because also then if I don't do it well from the beginning, it won't work at all at the end of the day. And now, however, you know that you can do it fast, and probably it will work well enough anyways, because the pre-trained models already have enough intelligence by themselves. So you can just crunch away one feature after the other.
Yes, absolutely. So can you introduce to everyone listening what Chapter 2 is about, and what problems you're trying to solve there?
Yeah, of course. At Chapter 2, we are building infrastructure for music rights transactions. What we basically did, we launched in December, so not too long ago, we launched Balthasar, which is a SaaS tool that the key players in the music industry are using in order to value music rights, or a catalog of music rights usually. And this is actually, like before, it has been a really long and tedious process where if you wanted to transact a music catalog, you needed to figure out the value of that music catalog. And this you would usually do by giving it to like an analyst or a team of analysts, and those would take a couple of weeks to like crunch all the numbers in Excel sheets, etc., to figure out where the royalty earnings come from. Basically, they can come from Spotify, which would be a good income source. They could also come from some kind of sync because your music was used in an advertisement, which is not the most favorable income source, I would say. And after crunching all the data, they can present the data to you, and based on that data, you can make a valuation. we basically automate a big part of that process. We have integrated a bunch of autonomous agents, data processing pipelines, etc., and also even some old school machine learning models. And now it just you can do it in a couple of hours, and the analyst or the decision maker now can have much more time to make the actual important decisions and also to dive much deeper into the data and investigate all that we want to know about it. And at the same time, we are not only faster, but based on the feedback we got from our customers, it's also more accurate than what analysts are doing manually.
Oh, that's really cool. So basically going from weeks to doing something in a few hours, essentially.
Yes.
Really cool. And I guess it gives you maybe a platform to build up additional things later on if they want to have more insights and, like you said, like more kind of data-driven process.
For sure.
It gives them more power. So.
For sure. It also goes further than just evaluation. It also goes, we have a lot of data enrichment pipelines as well, where we get additional data that you want to see around it, right, to get further insights. It's also a forecasting that you can see what is likely going to happen in the next couple of years with your catalog earnings. You can also do carve-outs, for example, if you only want to invest in certain tracks in that catalog, all kind of these opportunities. And we hope this is going to make the music transactions market much more efficient than it is now, which will benefit a lot of people in the market.
Very cool. Very cool.
Including the rights holders, of course.
Right. So this is like it's a very specific, like a niche, right? So it's a music industry, but it's music industry can have many verticals, and this is a very specific one. Focused on the rights, music rights, and the catalog. So when we talk about vertical SaaS and AI solutions, we talk about these kind of things, right? Where you identified a specific set of problems within a specific sector or industry, and you basically solve those. And AI in this case is like an enabler, right? It makes this actually happen. I worked in a legal tech space, so my experience there is also, right, you have a legal industry and then you have different verticals. You have now companies like Harvey and Legora. They have a combined valuation of around $10 billion US, which is crazy. You have other industries like you've got healthcare. We have Tandem Health, Neko Health. There's this company also called Tempus, which I think is valued at like $12 billion US. They do like oncology and stuff. It's crazy. So clearly, like if you look at like vertical industry solutions, there's obviously value and a need there. But then, like at the same time, I don't know, it was like 2 days ago, I think, OpenAI released this tool called Prism, I think. And, Prism effectively replaces tools like Overleaf. So for those that don't know, Overleaf is a tool that you use to basically write your paper. So maybe, I don't know if maybe you used it to write your NeurIPS or KDD paper. But it's essentially a tool that it's like a vertical that helps researchers write and publish papers. And they had that niche carved out, and then OpenAI just out of the blue comes out and produces their own tool, which, obviously is not good for Overleaf. So this kind of brings us to, an important question. What moat does, vertical or a SaaS company have, or how do they develop that moat? And what would stop, the other kind of giants of tech and AI from just kind of swallowing that all up, in your opinion?
Yeah, very good question. Especially since I think so much is going to change this year. Since this year, probably code is going to be, becoming for free almost, right? With the quality of coding agents that we see nowadays. Yeah. Regarding the Overleaf example, I kind of struggle to see, because it was just a matter of time until someone would integrate AI and just make it so much better, because it would be a big hassle to work in Overleaf without using some AI tool integrated in it. I did hear that since code is going to be for free, it's basically that you need to listen into your customers and really need to do good research in what they need to build the products and the features that they want. And I think that is actually crucial to like build a successful SaaS tool or any software solution, right? But I'm not sure if that will actually be a moat, because once you have built it, these kind of this kind of knowledge that you extracted from your customer research will be visible at like features in your product. And then anyone just can point an coding agent at it and say, hey, can you build the same platform with the same features? And then you have the same platform. And that's not really a moat. No. But I do think there's still definitely some moats that are there, right? And one thing is, for example, let's say DocuSign, right? Anyone can just replicate a DocuSign by telling Lovable or any vibe coding tool of their choice, hey, build me a new DocuSign. And that probably works quite well, right? But still, people are going to use DocuSign and going to pay good money for it. Yeah, probably. And that is simply because of market positioning and brand value. And probably also because DocuSign is just in that industry with a good reputation. People trust it. Probably it also has a bunch of certificates that data is safe, etc., which as a new company, you first have to acquire, etc. But it could be that Google or OpenAI will just create a new version, also have the certificate provided for free or something like that, and people will walk over. There are still modes left, however. One mode is definitely if you solve hard problems. DocuSign, I don't believe there's any hard problem in it that is difficult to solve. But if you look at other tools where usually some kind of hard problems hidden in them, let's say in our Balthasar tool, one feature is that if we know the title of a song and the artist that contributed to that song, we need to fetch the release dates of that song because that's very important to value a music catalog. And there's a simple way of doing that, of just Googling it and find the release date. But in reality, it's quite a bit more complex than that, because if you dive into the music industry, you will find out there are multiple types of release dates. You can release the song, you can release the album at different times, etc. So you want to pin it down much better there. And this is something where it took a few iterations to get to the best solution of how to consistently find the accurate release date depending on the case that you want to use the release date for. And then there are a lot of other these kind of features that are happening under the hood. The user that uses the platform or anyone who interacts with the platform doesn't see how that is happening, so you can't just replicate it. You need to put your own brain to work in order to solve these kind of problems. So I think having these kind of hard problems is something that will be a moat, because people will take a while to figure out how to solve them. And the harder the problem, the better, of course. Now another one that I think is the most interesting is network effects. And this is simply, of course, you can maybe now already, if not in half a year probably, you can tell Lovable to create a new Instagram, right? And it will probably perform quite well and efficiently as well. But people will still be using Instagram simply because that's where everyone else is. You don't just want to go to a new platform where nobody is for no really good reason. Exactly. So that's kind of a network effect, which will definitely protect a lot of tools in a lot of SaaS industries. At the same time, then, one subcategory of the network effect that's most relevant to us actually is data. If your platform collects some kind of data that makes your platform better, right? You can collect the data and use it to train some models or to improve some kind of matching processes, some kind of ranking processes or whatever. For example, in Balthasar, we also collect a lot of data, right? And we can use that data, for example, to train a forecasting model to forecast future royalty earnings, or also just to crunch a lot of statistics on what do certain music catalogs and certain genres grow year over year. All of that data, yeah, it's impossible to get for anyone else in the industry. So this is why if you have a platform where you have this kind of network effect of either other people being on the platform, improving the platform, or the data that you're collecting on the platform, improving the platform, then you have a pretty good moat as well.
Right. So I guess if I like summarize it, and I can also kind of relate to this because I mentioned Harvey before, which the valuation was very high, like $8 billion US. There was this lawyer that used, I believe, I don't remember if it was Claude Code, but it was one of these, coding agent tools, and rebuilt the whole thing in one evening, basically. So I guess you can, going back to what you said, because I think these are like the important things. Is that first of all, are you solving? Are you exposed in the sense that you don't really have, like you mentioned, Overleaf? You had to use all these other tools anyway, right? Or you had to do, you had to use AI tools, for example, to maybe cross-check things, to do research, to fix things up. So are you, are you completely exposed by that you have to rely on a lot of other things, to begin with? The second one is, can anyone just wipe code your thing and have exactly the same thing? Which kind of leads you into what you mentioned. Are you solving the hard problem, like the real pain point? And have you really identified the pain point from the user? Because you mentioned that it's really understanding, what does the customer want? And then have you developed that kind of a network effect? So it's these kind of like 4 things, I would say, that's the moat, basically. Cool. You mentioned, data. Obviously, that's always been important to you and me and to everyone else that's been, working with machine learning and AI. Has anything fundamentally changed in terms of how we perceive and how we work with the data now compared to, let's say, 4 to 5 years ago?
Data, good question. I believe it's definitely so much easier to use data now because, first of all, you can use any AI to structure your data, right? Before, it was often a manual process of either you or someone else doing a lot of annotations for you. And nowadays, you can throw it at an LLM and it can annotate it at really high quality for you and also structure it if it's in some kind of unstructured format and you need to have it in ABC structure. That goes really easy and fast nowadays. So it's much easier and faster to work with data. Even if you don't have any data, back in the days, you almost couldn't do anything.
No.
Sometimes you could scrape the web, which would still be a lot of work. And sometimes you would have to maybe set up very expensive data collection pipelines. But nowadays, you can often create just synthetic data. It's often really good enough or even better than real data. And at the same time, it's much easier to scrape data on the internet as well now. It's basically, scraping the web has become much easier with AI agents too. So I think all of those aspects make it so much easier to gather a lot of data that you need and also do it. At the same time, you also just need less data, right? Because usually the AIs that we have are trained on enough data so that you don't even need to train it on your own data. And also, you don't even need to understand the data so well as before. Back in the days, it could take you a long time sometimes to crunch through the data to actually understand the pattern and then be able to train a model that understands the pattern as well, right? And nowadays, there are, of course, definitely still difficult problems where you have to understand it yourself. But in many of the easier problems, you don't need to understand the problem, the data yourself. You just need to understand the problem, and you can give it an AI agent, and the AI agent is intelligent enough to actually understand the data.
Yeah. It's very interesting because, we both worked at EQT, and EQT has a lot of, being a private equity or investment company, there was a lot of terminology and sort of processes around, investing, and you usually needed to talk to, people doing the deals to understand, like, what does this mean and what should I look at in here? And then sort of when LLMs started to come out, you could actually use them to kind of explain that to you. And interestingly enough, like, one thing maybe to kind of that goes a little bit against what we've been saying, but like there used to be, I don't know if you remember, but there were a lot of tools or platforms for annotating data back in the day. Remember, there were a lot of different ones, and they were, some of them had a pretty high valuation even. And all of those were kind of pretty much gone because of the LLMs, because they can kind of do that for you with a single call. So that's, and that was a hard problem to solve, actually. Like, how do you annotate the data properly? So that was interesting. But like, continuing on with the data, so like, with my experience, I've been the last 12 months building legal AI solutions, which were specific to understanding contracts, like understanding big transactions. Let's say merger and acquisition, for example. And yes, there's data, and the data is text, which is basically the actual contracts, which can be hundreds of pages long. But one thing that was not there, I guess you can kind of call it, like latent space or some kind of latent variables, which is the know-how or the knowledge. Like how do you actually, what are the steps that you take through this process? And that's the lawyer knows that, because the lawyer develops that over time through the practice, and even legal books couldn't help you, because the textbooks are usually based on standard kind of like law and what's right and what's not right and what is the process and etc. But this is a bit different. This was you have two parties and they're trying to establish a contract, and you really have to just get a feeling for it over time how to do that. So it's super, super tricky, and it's kind of invisible. So what I found was that I had to somehow distill that, this kind of latent knowledge into the AI systems that we're building. So just the documents and the data was not enough. I had to kind of build that. Do you see, have you come across that in chapter 2, like in your field? And do you think that this kind of domain expertise or distillation of this knowledge, is that something that could be like a mote or a safeguard for SaaS companies?
A good question. Actually, I'm curious now what you mean by distilling, or what did you do at the company you worked at? Did you like fine-tune your own lawyer language model, or how did you distill it?
Yeah, so in this case, what we did was because it's the fine tuning on this kind of data is a bit tricky. So it was essentially you have this agent skills concept. So it's pretty much defining skills so that you have different skills for different contexts. So if you're working in let's say merger and acquisitions or M&A transaction, you have a kind of a set of skills for that, and it's almost like a decision tree, like a branching mechanism, where you kind of look at, okay, what governing law are you in? Are you in the Nordics, or are you in the UK or in the US? And depending on that, everything kind of changes, like how you price the companies, what kind of leverage ratios and interest rates you give, like everything kind of changes. So we did kind of created these almost like decision trees effectively that we fed to the AI. So it was not fine tuning, but it was still through the help of in-house lawyers that we hired, we managed to distill that. So that was our solution to the problem.
Gotcha. Yeah. That's, I think, very much the way that most people go nowadays, because it's probably the most efficient way to work with it, and probably also the most effective. And I very much agree 100% with these experiences. We definitely had them as well. It's quite interesting, actually, also, because at the beginning we made a lot of assumptions, and we realized throughout the process, every time we made an assumption, a week or 2 weeks later, we ingested some royalty statements and we had to throw our assumptions overboard. So from writing a lot of business logic at the beginning, we actually didn't start as an AI company. We didn't start building an AI SaaS software, right? We just wanted to solve this problem. And over time, we just had to throw so many assumptions and so much business logic overboard that we had to integrate many more AI agents over time. And now there are so many AI agents integrated into our platform that, it's basically an AI platform. This worked really well simply because throwing overboard the assumptions, AI can autonomously make the decisions and can realize when to apply what kind of logic, right? And that no logic does ever hold over all cases.
Exactly.
But of course, that means that we did have provide the AI with all the reasoning when to make what decision, etc., right? And that turned out to be a pretty complex process, of course. But the more you do it, the more you distill it, similar to what you did as well, right? We have a very talented royalty analyst, and it's actually very difficult to find specialized royalty analysts. But we have a very talented one that can answer really tricky questions where we are like, what the hell do we see here? And he's like, oh, of course, it's this case and this case. And so we can, distill that knowledge into an AI that can solve all these problems autonomously.
Yeah. So the future of the, of like vertical SaaS companies could be that you have this, you have a a deep domain expert paired with an AI expert, paired with a product expert, paired with a bunch of agents, effectively. That's the kind of the formula, very interesting. Yeah, I remember, Tandem Health. It's another, great startup focused in healthcare. And, I heard that, they have the most expensive employees because they're doctors. They're so reliant on doctors and nurses in order to distill that kind of knowledge and process. Because it's one thing to say, I can, let's say, summarize medical notes. It's another thing to do it in such a way that you can give the result directly to a doctor or a nurse, and they will go, this makes total sense to me, So it's this kind of alignment, in terms of the thinking alignment, so to speak. So,
indeed.
Cool. Now, when you and I, we worked at EQT, you did a lot of cool stuff. Probably too many cool things to mention. We could probably have a podcast just about, all the different projects you did there. But one of them was very interesting. So it was actually, you took an LLM and you did some more things to it, but you attached this classification head to it, and you fine tuned it. It was a model that it was called PTAC. You had a paper written about that. Like for me, going back and training models or fine tuning models feels like a distant memory now. And I was doing it. I started doing it 10 years ago. Do you think that verticals or SaaS companies or startups trying to carve out a niche, do you think that they will ever go back to training machine learning models or fine tuning models? Will that ever be a thing again?
I think if they once stopped doing it, they probably will not get back to doing it.
Yeah.
I think that's very unfortunate for us ML engineers. We would love to do it probably.
Yes, we would.
But as I said earlier, for 90% of the problems are just more efficient to solve using AI agents, setting them up with the right tools and context, and they can solve it then. That is just much faster to develop and often also performs better. But that is 90%, so that means we are 10% left. And those 10% probably didn't stop doing it yet and probably will keep doing it for a while, because we're like pre-trained foundation models that you can call via API in a lot of areas now, but not in all of them. If you think about time series forecasting, or let's say anomaly detection in the banking sector to detect fraudulent transactions, I think these are industries where it's still valuable because you do have a lot of data that you have somehow in your platform. And if you fine-tune some model, or if you train some model on that data, you probably will still get better results than if you would have some language model give you an answer to whatever question. Right. And then often it's not only about quality, but also about speed. If you have to verify 1 million transactions every hour or every minute, then it probably would be a very expensive bill that you would get from any language model or from any self-hosted model as well. While if you can deploy a small specialized model, you will get it faster and cheaper as well. But then I think performance will always probably be more important. And what we see when building Balthasar as well, that we want to integrate this forecasting model. And then, of course, we have historical data. We can train a model on that. And we do see that the forecasting performance is better if we train a time series model on that specific data that we have in order to forecast. It performs better than if we would take just a pre-trained time series model, or if we would even ask an agent. So of course, we want a better performance. So for these kind of cases, we still train our own models.
Nice. So time series and kind of anomaly detection is sort of bespoke problems. Sure.
Probably there are some more cases I can think about, maybe in healthcare when you want to scan X-ray scans for some diseases maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert in that field, so I can't tell. But I can imagine that there are some more cases like that.
Yeah, I know like DeepMind and some of these research labs, they focused a lot on these kind of bespoke sort of life sciences and biotech kind of areas. So that's that's absolutely valid. And performance, like you said, I actually kind of lied. I did train a model, but I don't really call it training because it was a lazy learner. So it was a KNN classifier. But the idea was to classify a document very, very fast because you have a 200-page document. Even if you feed the first 2 pages, if you have 1 billion documents, that's a big scale. So why not just have a super fast TVF, IDF, KNN classifier? So that was the last thing, but I don't really count it as training. So, but yeah.
But quick question: did you then take the whole 200-page document, create some bag of words, and put that into the classifier, or
it was like the first, I think, 3 pages.
Yeah, gotcha.
So it was not the full one, but it was enough to get. Usually, you can get it from the kind of the title page and the first set of definitions. You can understand what the document is about. So and that was super fast. That was millisecond classification.
Yeah, definitely.
And cheap as well.
Yeah.
So
it's a very similar problem actually to what we have at Chapter 2.
Okay.
You wouldn't expect it from the music industry, but we also get 200-page PDFs.
Oh, you do? Okay.
And have to process them, of course.
Yeah.
So
maybe there's a golden rule that if you're building a SaaS company, there's always going to be a big PDF involved. Cool. So, I mean, we kind of touched on this, but if we look at SaaS, what do you think AI has brought to the table in terms of technology, like holistically, to SaaS companies?
Okay. I think compared to previous SaaS companies, the newest generation of SaaS companies, or any SaaS company that integrates AI, you can capture a much bigger piece of the pie because it has gone basically from building SaaS tools to actually building SaaS solutions, building SaaS agents that are not used to perform a task, but that actually perform the task. And that, I think, is a whole other way of creating value. And by that, I mean that you create much more value, other than basically someone using the tool to perform the task and have it all a bit better organized, etc. You just have the tool doing the full task for you. And that means also that the value that you're creating is much bigger. You can capture a bigger piece of the whole sector.
And I suppose you're bringing also AI into the company, so to speak. So the AI, when a company is using that SaaS solution that integrates AI, they are adopting AI at the same time. So there's this whole concept of AI adoption. Do you see any barriers to AI adoption by companies or by SaaS companies or by customers? And what's your take on that?
I mean, there are a lot of barriers for sure. And I mean, it's often, and I can very much understand that because, to be fair, I feel guilty to some degree that I'm not always the first person to adopt something. And this is simply because, similar to me and also other people probably, often like you hear from someone, wow, have you tried this tool? It works really great. This guy that I read about has done this with this tool in just like 1 hour. And then you try it out yourself and it doesn't work. And you try it out again and it doesn't work again. And it probably works 1 out of 5 times. Or sometimes you try it and it works the first time you do it and you're so happy, right? The second time you do it again, you spend half an hour on the prompting and specifying the feature, etc. And then it goes completely wrong. And at the end, you have to do it all again yourself from the beginning. And then you're really demotivated and you're like, come on, I thought this would work. So I guess this is why I personally am always a little bit hesitant, and what I can also imagine other people, why they are hesitant. And it's natural because, of course, those kind of examples that you hear about are cherry-picked. Of course, if it doesn't work 4 times, nobody will tell you about it. But if it works 1 time, by chance, then everybody will start talking about it. Then I guess there are some barriers as well. I can imagine a lot of people don't want to use it out of pride, right? They prefer doing it themselves because, that's also a part of feeling important. And
maybe threatened as well, I suppose.
Yeah, you're frightened. You want to. It's a natural human instinct. You are afraid of new things by nature. So that is a normal reaction, I think. So I guess there are a lot of barriers. But I guess what you can do about it is you can really champion that. And there I have to give a shout out to our CTO, Jonathan. And he is already on the newest features. He's always really pushing at us to use every newest feature in Cursor or in or any tool that is being released, and also all of the company. So he always shows, hey guys, you want to try out this feature? Let's do it together. It's about showing the feature. It's about doing it together with the people so that they actually did it once and know how to do it again, and all of that. And then even though 9 out of 10 tools or features actually will never be used because people didn't really like them, the one tool that will actually be used, right, can be super valuable to the organization and can make things much faster and efficient. So yeah, that's the way to go.
Exactly. I had this idea in the past. I don't know if you've seen this as well, but so traditionally SaaS companies, let's say you're, I don't know, doing time reporting, or it's a customer relation management system or whatever it is. You know, it's a system, it's a tool, and it gets sold and integrated into a company, and people use it. Maybe there's some tutorials or education in the beginning in terms of how you use it. Now you have AI in the mix, which is a kind of a non-deterministic thing that's happening, and it feels kind of alive as well and dynamic, and people, a lot of people misunderstand it that don't actually work with AI. So I had this sort of idea where, okay, let's say you're building a legal AI solution and you deploy it to a customer, which is maybe a law firm, but part of the deployment, part of the package is also kind of this change management and education, like kind of hand-holding with the customer to understand, like, what is AI and what can you do with it? Yeah. Do you see that in your area as well, where you need to maybe potentially do that with your customers?
I think we provide our tool to the customers, right? And we don't always tell them this is using AI. We kind of try to solve the problems in a way that they don't need to interact with the AI, that we try to take as much of the interaction as way as possible, so that for them, they just need to click a button and the AI does everything in the background. So we do a lot of that, and we do show them what is possible, and they usually get very excited about, wow, this goes fast, this is super efficient, this is wonderful. There are always some things where we have to explain, hey, it is using AI, so sometimes it might make it like that, sometimes it might do it like that. Just like if you give the same task to 2 humans.
Exactly.
One human might do the task like that, one human might do the task like that. It's different outcomes on paper. Eventually, they are both correct, right? It's maybe one is a bit better than the other, but it's often a lot of tasks are these ambiguous tasks, right, that you can do one way or the other. And that, I think, is difficult for people to understand when they see that, for people to get used to, because they are used to software not being ambiguous. They are used to software always delivering the same output on the same input. That, I think, is a bit of a human-machine interaction problem that we will have to learn how to handle in the future. Yeah,
for sure. Very cool. So just to round things off, finish things off here. If we look into this year and maybe beyond this year, what do you? And we talked about skills and assets like machine learning engineers and the coding. Basically, you mentioned is effectively for free. What skills will be pivotal for people to build their sort of vertical SaaS solutions? And also, for example, let's say students at schools or universities coming out, just starting out, like what should they be doing now?
Yeah, it's a good question, especially because, as you say, it's unfortunate for us, but code will be for free. Yeah. So probably coding will not be one of the pivotal skills anymore. But I do think it will probably still be really valuable to have an understanding of software architecture, of how things work together, what you need for this and this in order to make good judgments. Does it make sense to build it like that or to build it like that? So all of that will definitely be pivotal skills. At the same time, since code will be for free, it will be really important to be able to use the tools that provide you the code for free or almost for free. But so that means you want to be able to use those vibe coding tools or any other AI tools that are on the market. It's not only for vibe coding, but for anything nowadays. So it will be very important to be up to date with all the latest tools, use them well, and otherwise, I guess it will be to dive really deep into some sector, really understand the inefficiencies in that market, in that industry, and identify the hard problems that make these inefficiencies inefficient. And solving those will be probably the distinction between the people that solve problems and not.
Perfect. So to wrap it up, I'll just do a quick summary of what we talked about today. If we are looking at the specific vertical SaaS AI solutions, what is very pivotal or very critical to making it successful is, first of all, really understanding the actual problem or the actual customer or user problem and really nailing that problem better than anyone else can. And effectively solving hard problems that others will really struggle to solve, and making it kind of bulletproof effectively, in that that someone doesn't just wipe code it in 2 hours and it's kind of that's almost like a test that you can use. Like, can I wipe code this in 2 hours?
Yeah.
If I can, it's probably not the right thing that I'm building. Implementing proper network effects, whether that's for branding, through the right kind of certificates, maybe data, privacy, security, etc. And utilizing the kind of full system engineering skills. So not just relying on one kind of just pure coding, but actually being able to integrate many different tools in a super efficient way, being able to work with data, being able to work with AI agents. I would say that's kind of the summary of what we talked about today.
Indeed.
I'd like to thank you, Valentin, very much for speaking with me today. And please check out Chapter 2, and we wish Chapter 2 the best of luck in the music industry.
Thank you very much, Armin, for having me. It was a pleasure to be on the podcast.
Cheers. Thank you.